You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Hey guys, first time back in a little while doing an Impact Wrestling interview here on Interactive Wrestling Radio as we welcome Violent by Design's Eric Young to the show for the first time since literally the week of his match with Sting on Impact back on Spike TV, what was Sting's debut as a full-time part of the Impact Wrestling roster 16 years ago. Here he is again, 16 years later. We're still at it. He's still at it. Everything is right with the world. Be sure and check out his new show as they discuss fantasy hockey. It's really a interesting show. Admittedly, hockey is not my number one sport. It used to be one of my number one sports. I was a huge fan of hockey in the 90s, especially that 1994 New York Rangers team with Mark Messier and Buka Boom. And man, there were some great players back. Mike Richter was the goalie. There was a lot of great players that was on the 1994 New York Rangers. We talk a little bit about that kind of thing and more. Hope you guys enjoy this interview. The name of the show is Dangle Bet Selly, and it's available on Game Plus, which is a Anthem Sports owned item, which of course is the parent company of Impact Wrestling. Don't forget, Under Siege is Saturday, and then June 19th, the birthday of Impact Wrestling, will be Slammiversary. And that is going to be back in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where this gentleman lives. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Be sure and check out our recent Jenny Santana interview, the daughter of Tito Santana. Hope you guys enjoy all we do. And check out our store and buy something, because this is what we love to do, and that is how we fund what we do here. So buy something and help us keep going free and clear. Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line for the first time in 16 years is a gentleman who joined us right before he was going to wrestle Sting. Back in an old episode of Impact Wrestling, Sting's debut match when he was full-time with the company. Of course, I'm talking about the gentleman who now leads Violent by Design. He is Mr. Eric Young. Are you with me, sir?
Yeah, a wild ride, man. 16 years ago. I mean, I have a terrible time keeping track of this kind of thing, but I don't think I've ever been interviewed by somebody 16 years ago and then again today. So cool thing for me, cool thing for you maybe. It's pretty wild to think. I mean, it seems like 2 lifetimes ago.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad to have you back on again, and this time it's a little bit different. We're going to talk a little wrestling and a little hockey. In fact, why don't we start with that first? You have a new show coming out on the Games Plus app, as well as with the Fight Network, and it is Dangle Bet Selly. You might have to help me out with what that name means, but it's basically a hockey-centric fantasy hockey show. How did you get involved in such a project?
Yeah, I mean, for me, hockey, it's always been a massive passion in my life. Anybody that has spent, more than 10 or 15 minutes around me knows that. I grew up in Canada. I wanted to play professional hockey. Found out when I was a young teenager that I wasn't very good at it. Started to realize that wasn't really a path for me. But have loved it my whole life, have played my entire life. I still play today as often as I can, sometimes 3 times a week. More as just like for exercise and conditioning, obviously more than anything. But I just love the game. Love the sport of hockey, love the NHL, follow it like a complete lunatic, watch 200 to 300 games a year, will not miss a single playoff game, schedule permitting. And the Dangle Bet Selly thing just comes from me kind of enacting a passion of mine and pursuing it and following it. Fantasy sports is a huge side project of mine, passion of mine, and I I've done a couple football shows, and this will be my third or fourth hockey show. 3 of the 4 with my very good buddy from Canada, Chris Meany, the captain, I call him. Dangle Betselli, we were picked up by FTN as a digital platform, but it's like all the like kinds of the young, upcoming stars in the fantasy space, whether it was football or whether it was basketball or for us hockey, baseball, all of it was all getting hired by FTN. So they reached out to me and kind of bringing me on as a content creator for the hockey side of things. And I mean, as you know, I would assume that you live in the United States, and hockey is definitely the redheaded stepchild of professional sports, and that's okay. That's okay. I get it. It's hard to understand if you don't know it. It's hard to watch on TV if you don't understand it. But yeah, the FTN show, the Dangle Betselli show, is years and years in the making for me, and a huge passion project of mine. We've been doing it all season, but just got picked up with PointsBet Canada, a huge sponsorship through them, and then picked up to air on Game Plus Network, like you were saying, and Fight TV. So super cool for me. Keeping it all in the Anthem family, which is interesting. But yeah, it's a really cool thing for me, and we've created this really cool community online, and watching our YouTube videos and commenting and stuff, and the numbers kind of grow every week. And at one point during the Super Bowl weekend, we were the third most viewed show on the entire network. And for a hockey show, that's a monstrous task, and that's a monstrous accomplishment, because like I said, it's just not as many people watch it, not as many people play fantasy hockey or gamble on hockey. And I get it, because it's impossible, to be honest. It's chaos. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to be here talking to you about that. And,
very cool.
Really proud of it.
Awesome. I find it's more regional, and unfortunately, obviously, it's huge in Canada. I grew up in New Jersey, so we had the Devils, and I was actually a Rangers fan. I was at the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals. I'm just I was a huge fan of it then. But in 2000, I moved to Arizona, and we play hockey like you'd imagine we'd play hockey in a desert, not very well. So it's just not a very covered thing.
Some lean years in Arizona, that's for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Does that make you a Predators fan since you live in Nashville for so long?
Yeah, I grew up a Maple Leafs fan, and I still follow the Maple Leafs religiously. I would say, definitely I am a massive Preds fan. I support the team. I support this city. I could live anywhere in the United States, and this is where I choose because I love it here. Love the Predators organization. I do tons of stuff with the team. I've golfed in their charity golf tournament poorly, bowled in their family bowling tournament poorly. I've spoken at the prospects camp. I attend training camp and go to as many games as possible. I've led the singing of the national anthem standing at center ice during a playoff game versus the Blackhawks that they won.
Awesome.
Friends with a bunch of the players, so that's definitely my team. But I mean, I'm an NHL enthusiast. I mean, I watch all games. I love tons of different players. I'm wearing a Carolina Hurricanes tank top right now. So I mean, I've got about 50 or 60 different ones of that, and probably 40 to 60 different jerseys. So you never can tell. But the Preds, that's my team. I obviously still follow from my childhood the Maple Leafs. But yeah, I just love everything about the sport, to be honest.
It's kind of funny. I went into work today, and my boss works remote from Nashville, and he came in, and the first thing he said to me was, "Don't talk to me about the Predators game last night." So
it was ugly. It was ugly. I tuned in for maybe the first 3 or 4 minutes. I was watching the Rangers and Pittsburgh overtime game, unbelievable game, and flipped over to the Preds game, and they were already losing 4-0. So I decided not to torture myself. I knew the outcome of that already. About 14 minutes into the first period. So lots of hockey left to play. They're in it deep because they lost their starting goaltender, UC Saros, and Colorado is one of, if not the best team in the league. So they've got a long ways to go, but lots of hockey left.
Awesome. Do you mind if I ask you some wrestling questions?
No, man, that's how we met originally. That's probably why I'm on your wrestling show. So yeah, fire away.
Cool. Well, the one thing that I think we all have to discuss is, of course, when you won the world title the first time in Impact. The first time, not when you came back, but the time when you were the underdog story, and it was kind of a little bit unexpected. What did that incredible experience of becoming world champion mean to you at that time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so much as being the world champion. It's the pressure and the responsibility of a company. You know, obviously a huge wrestling company that airs all over the world. You know, that has millions of people viewing it weekly through television, through digital, through YouTube, through all this other stuff, saying that, you know, you're the flagship of this show and of this company, and that's this is something I've never taken lightly. Anyone that says they got into wrestling saying they didn't want to be world champion is either lying to you, or they're in it for the wrong reasons. You know, and did I ever think I was going to be world champion as coming from a short, fat kid from southwestern Ontario? You know, no. You know, I mean, like, it just, did I dream about it? Of course. Did I want it? Of course. Did I believe I could do it? Of course. But you just never know. You know, I set one goal when I got into wrestling, and that was to sign a contract so I could tell people, including my family, that this is what I do for a living. And before that, I never ever said I was a professional wrestler. It was a hobby. It was something I did on the side, even though I did it at a very high level for 6 or 7 years. Tons of tryouts in the WWE and WWF, and tryouts with TNA, and traveled all over North America, some into Mexico as well. But yeah, it was definitely, it's a cherry on top. It's something that can never be removed. As long as you look up the lineage of that pro wrestling and of that world title, you're going to see my name, and then no one can take that away from me. It was very special. And the support of my peers, you know, coming back through the curtain, and everybody I work with there and clapping and congratulating me, that feeling is, I mean, just a drug, man. Put it in my veins. It's was an amazing night for me professionally, for sure.
And absolutely, and as a fan, it was great to see, because it seemed like it was just deserved. It was deserved, so that was awesome to see. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I don't want to keep you too long, but I kind of like to go chronologically, and of course, the next thing that happens is you decide to leave TNA, Impact Wrestling, TNA as was. So there's very few people who know the history of Impact as much as I do, that loved it, have risen with every rise and fallen with every fall along with the company. Obviously, things were not in good shape in 2016, and things were a little bit uncertain. Did that lead to why you decided it was time to try your hand and see if there was interest up north?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's part of it. I mean, there's a lots of things. You know, there's the big one is for me was I felt like at that point, and with management and where the company stood and where I stood, I mean, I'd kind of accomplished everything there that I was going to. You know, and there was no ceiling left. Like, I had bumped my head against it and remained near the top of it, and there was no breaking through. There was, you know, it was brick, not glass, and it was not going to get higher. It was, if anything, it was going to get lower and lower. And I mean, looking at the decision now back, you know, I feel like I was right. You know what I mean? Like, it fell on some very lean times, as you know, fans and people that work there are well aware of. And of course, you know, my dream was to work for the WWE and WWF. You know, TNA didn't exist when I was a child.
Right.
Obviously, when it started in 2004, 2005, I was obviously very interested in working there. It was another place. They were doing really cool things. The roster was loaded with all these mega talented, young, hungry people, and wanting to be part of that is very appealing to me. Being the underdog and the smaller thing and being part of something that's growing has always been appealing to me. But, you know, I had a feeling that there would be interest because of my standing in the wrestling world at that point. And my contract was winding down, and it was just trying to take a swing, you know, and try something different. And I don't regret it. I mean, I enjoyed almost my entire time there, to be honest. You know, the NXT time was very special to me.
Yeah.
Me and Hunter, Triple H, became very close. A lot of the stuff you saw through Sanity was from my brain and his brain, and working in collaboration. It was a very hands-on experience. And, you know, we grew Sanity, me, Wolf, Killian, Damo, and Nikki grew Sanity into one of the top acts in the company. Tag Team of the Year, Match of the Year. We're a huge part of every show. We're on every takedown or takeover. And, yeah, you know, I'm really proud of that point. And then, I mean, everyone knows what happened the main roster side. I'm not the first person they missed on. I'm not the last. There's no, hard feelings over it. I'm not bitter. I told Vince McMahon this to his face: is if you can't find 5 minutes for me to do something, then you failed. And I would say it to his face again.
Awesome.
It's nothing personal. I don't think he was always treated me kindly. He took time to listen to me when I pitched ideas and was complimentary to me early on. And then somewhere that just, he's busy making $1 billion television show and just decided that I wasn't someone that he was interested in. And we went our separate ways. And he's a genius, and wrestling exists today because of him and his ruthless vision of saying pro wrestling can be mainstream, and it is. And I'm not sitting in this beautiful home in Nashville, Tennessee, and I didn't have these adventures and have this amazing life without his persistence and without his vision and his promoting and him saying that pro wrestling can be a mainstream product. It's $1 billion industry, and we all owe Vince McMahon a massive debt of gratitude. Do I think he made a mistake? 100%. Do I think he'll do it again? 100%. Am I the first person he's missed on? Absolutely not.
Perfect. Absolutely. And I do think you're right. I think he missed with you. That's for sure.
There's no doubt.
Absolutely. So one of the guys I had on right before the pandemic hit was Chris Harris. And Chris Harris said that it almost felt like there was a stigma from guys who made their name elsewhere when they went to WWE. Of course, people always say, well, what about Sting? They had a mark on him and things like that. But that's kind of been overturned with AJ Styles and the success he's had there. Do you think that having the success before you got there had any impact on the way that they envisioned you in the company in WWE?
Well, I think going into NXT, if anything, it's the reason I got hired. I was already an established star worldwide. I never had the WWE machine behind me, so it's not like I had 2 million Instagram followers or any of that thing. But in the world of wrestling, if you were a wrestling fan, a person that consumed wrestling on a regular state, you knew who Eric Young was, and were either aware of me in some way. Maybe you didn't like me, maybe you did, but you were at least aware of me. And that's they were going through this process of NXT growing, I think 1,000 times faster than they were ready for, and they needed people that could carry the load, and a lot of the people they had at the PC were young and inexperienced, and you can't teach experience. It's just you can't know what you don't know until you do it. And for me, I couldn't name another wrestler that's seen the card from every angle that I've seen it from. I've done everything. And I've done it all at a high level. I'm not the best wrestler or the best talker or have the best body or I'm the best athlete, but I'm very, very good at all those things. And, I've been the opening match. I've been the popcorn match. I've been the main event. I've been a bad guy. I've been a good guy. I was wrestling women before it was even a thing.
Right.
And for me, my experience is second to none. I'm sure if we really thought about it, there might be somebody that's in that category, but off the top of my head, I don't know anybody that's done the different amount of things that I've done. And Triple H saw that and was a fan of my work. And I had talked years to him before about coming over to work there. And it didn't work out. And but I'm glad it did. And I'm still friends with him to this day. I still talk to him. I talk to him quite regularly.
That's beautiful. That's great to hear. And I hope he's doing okay too with the health scare he had as well.
Yeah, he's old school, man. He won't talk about it. He says, "Yeah, I'm fine," and it's just kind of that old school mentality. But I'm sure he's doing fine with that, and it'll be cool to see him kind of get back in the mix again and stuff. But yeah, as far as what Chris said about the stigma, I think it just depended. With AJ, he's a generational talent. There's no one is going to see him do what he does and think that he's not great. It's just the way it is. And when I say I'm not the first person he's missed on, I won't be the last. I point out Kenny Omega, who may be bell to bell the best physical performer that this business has seen in the last 10 or 12 years. He didn't last 6 months.
Wow.
He got fired. So it's literally, it's just a machine and you're a cog in the wheel. And You're replaceable, just like everybody's replaceable. They replaced The Rock, and they replaced Steve Austin, and they replaced Hulk Hogan. And they're a billion-dollar industry, and they're not concerned about you or your opinions or any of that shit. They're concerned about making money, and they're doing that. So yeah, I think it's hit and miss. Sometimes he's a fan of you, that you accomplish something somewhere else, and sometimes I think he holds that against you. And I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to any of it, to be honest, at this point. And I don't think he sees as clear as he used to. I mean, he hasn't slept in 4 decades. So,
That's true.
Hasn't spent a day in the real world in 40 years. So, I mean, how could he possibly know what people want, what people want to see? And he can't, and that's nothing against him. Like I said, I would shake his hand, and I would do almost anything for him if he asked, because my life is incredible because of him. And anybody that thinks any different is wrong, plain and simple. Is he my favorite person to work for? Probably my least favorite person to work for, because I was never given an opportunity. But at the same time, I mean, it's just business. It's nothing personal. I have the word fate tattooed on my right arm, and I believe I'm right exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Awesome. And you returned to Impact Wrestling, a very different company with a different owner at Slammiversary just a couple years ago. People called it coming home, but it's almost like a whole different company, a whole different vibe, at least from when you left it. What was Impact Wrestling like to return to, and how is the vibe backstage these days?
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different company. It's called Impact Wrestling now. TNA is no longer. They're using the lineage of the belts and the titles because the company they are linked. But the reality is there's very few people that were there when I left that are still there. It's owned by different people. It's owned by a different company. It's ran by different people. It's on a different television station. It's populated with completely different talents and completely different backstage people. There are some people that are still there, and thank God, people like Scott D'Amore and Eric Tompkins, David Sahadi. The list goes on and on. I'm going to leave some people off, and they're going to be upset with me, but I have a terrible memory. But those are 3 people that were there when I left, except not Scott, but Eric and David were there. And without them and their vision and whatever, there isn't probably an Impact for me to go to. Guys like Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, and they were carrying the load when nobody was watching it, when nobody was talking about it, and that company stayed around and is in existence still because of those guys. It's grown in the last year and a half since I've been back, almost doubled in size, numbers wise, sponsorship wise, reach wise. We're seeing in probably 60 or 70 countries around the world now. At one point, it almost didn't exist. So that's something to be really proud of for people that worked there before, and a point of pride for me as well, making my return to Slammiversary. In a way, going home, but in a way, it's a whole other kettle of fish. It's a really cool place to work, man. I can say I've been doing it a long time, over 26 years, 16 of those to 18 of those on television, and this is the most fun I've ever had in my life. So
that's incredible.
Scott D'Amore has created something very, very special there, and the people that work there are creating something very special. It's a really cool company and product to be part of.
Very cool. And your next big match is coming up at Under Siege. It'll be you and one of your partners with the Valid by Design going up against the Briscoes. And the Briscoes had perhaps the most, maybe even more so than some of the WWE guys, one of the biggest weekends in wrestling history, WrestleMania 38 weekend, when they worked both the Supercard of Honor and the Impact show, the Multiverse show. A huge part of the company now. It looks like they could become big parts of the company. What are your thoughts of that, facing the Briscoes on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, a huge fan of them and their work, and we haven't really ever crossed paths, which is a really weird thing. It's such a small world. We've known each other and we've talked and gone back and forth a little bit online, but have never really been in the same building at the same time. So it was really cool to get to see them. And I mean, one of, in the last 10 years, I don't know if you could name, you could probably name a few other guys, FTR and a couple other teams, Red Dragon maybe, as far as tag team wrestling. The Briscoes are synonymous in the last 10 or 15 years of being one of the best, if not the best, and most successful tag teams. He said it in his promo. He said they're a magnetic force for world championships, and you have to agree with him. They're amazing. and just a really unique style or a unique way of speaking and being and moving, and it's exciting, man. It's super cool, and whether it'll be me and Joe or me and Cody or Cody and Joe or me and somebody and Joe and somebody, I mean, who knows what will happen. It's a really cool storytelling element for us, having the Freebird rules, or I call them New Day rules, because most young fans don't know who the Freebirds are.
That's such a shame.
I mean, you never know. Yeah, it is a shame, but that's just the reality. I mean, it's wrestling just keeps on moving forward, and the more recent people to do that is New Day, and three of my best friends and three of the best human beings and most talented people I've ever got a chance to work with, and kind of continuing that storytelling element from a bad guy, like a heel perspective, is super fun, and it's a really cool way to keep wrestling fans kind of on their toes and never really knowing what's going to go on and how it's going to play out. And Under Siege this Saturday will be no different, man. It's going to be this will be a tag match I think people talk about for a long time. I'm looking forward to the responsibility of it. I'm looking forward to the challenge of it, and hopefully we're still holding on to those belts when it's all said and done.
All right, you have time for just a couple more questions?
Yeah, a couple more.
Okay. Forbidden Door is the AEW show. It's almost like All Out, because All In was New Japan and Ring of Honor and all these other companies, and now it's all these companies working together. Tonight, we're presuming that we're going to see W. Morrissey, more than likely, on AEW TV. Deonna Purrazzo has already been announced. Any chance we'll see Impact Wrestling involve itself in Forbidden Door?
Well, I think that's the whole thing with the Forbidden Door, man, is the Forbidden Door doesn't close. I don't know if door is the right term. I think it should be opening. It should be the forbidden opening or the forbidden portal, because the door closes. And I feel like the business that they did with Tony and AEW before went pretty well. I don't think anyone gained or lost anything. I think, there's just tons of really interesting stories that could be told and really interesting matchups that could be exploited. And then there's just no reason to shut a door or shut a portal from one company. They're all willing to work with each other. Us having a pretty good relationship with New Japan as well, and having Jay White and the Gorillas of Destiny, and we had Kojima over. It's just a really cool thing in wrestling right now. And I mean, I'm still a fan. I don't consume it like I used to, but I can imagine being a wrestling fan and just my mind spinning of the possibilities. It's such a cool time to be a wrestling fan, and there's so much of it. There's something for everybody, and that to me is the coolest part of where pro wrestling is right now.
Very cool. All right, Nashville Slammiversary coming up. It's going to be on the actual birthday of the company. June 19th, 2002 was the debut, and that's pretty cool. It's going to be in your adopted hometown. Any thoughts heading into that big pay-per-view?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what will happen. I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'm hoping that I have a big part in the show. Obviously, it's it's such a cool thing that it's on the birth of the company of TNA being a thing, and I'm hoping that they can get even Jeff involved somehow. I know that the relationship there is strained, but I think him and Scott are still friendly. So hopefully there's something there. There is no, even with something with Dixie, have her appear or something. Very kind lady, and had this company really rolling at one point. My hope is just to be doing something of substance, something cool. I know it will be a night to remember, a night to talk about, and I'm looking forward to, man, all the the memories that will come up, and how many Slammiversaries I've been part of. I can't remember because I'm terrible with that kind of thing. But the fans always have a cool way of reminding it through digital and through Twitter and Instagram. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I did do that. And I did wrestle Sting at one point in my life, and I did wrestle Kurt Angle, and I did do all these things. And I often forget, and it's not that it's not special. I'm always I just kind of like live in the moment, and then what I'm doing right now is what I'm doing right now, and I don't think too much about the past, and I don't think too much about the future. But come Slammiversary, I think it'll be something the wrestling world will be talking about, and this roster delivers, man, every single time. Under Siege this Saturday will be no different, and Slammiversary, that's the big one, man. That's the flagship, and I cannot wait for June 19th.
Awesome. Final question for you, kind of a layup, just to set you up here. Where can fans check out the new show, Dangle Bet Selly?
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's been streaming live on YouTube. If you want to go back and kind of refresh yourself, it is definitely a time-sensitive one. We're talking about the games that are coming that night. We do Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're usually live around 10 a.m. Eastern time, but you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Game Plus Network. You can watch it on FTN Network. There's tons of ways to consume it digitally, and I really appreciate anybody that checks it out. Like, if you like it, give us a like, share it, retweet it, comment. That's the lifeblood. As having a show and having a podcast and all this other stuff. That's how you get it to go. If you like something, you got to support it, or it disappears. So the support for this show has been growing like crazy. The FTN people have been amazing to me, and amazing to me and Chris and the Dangle Bet Selly guys. But the big thing is the people that are consuming it, man. It's just such a cool community of people, and they're all hockey crazy people like me, and getting to talk to them a couple times a week is super cool. So, yeah, if you get a chance, check it out, support it if you can. If you've ever done anything in wrestling that you've enjoyed, I would really appreciate the support in this other thing that I'm doing, because I'm super passionate about it.
That's awesome. Well, I do want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me once again. And I'll tell you what, let's book it for 16 years from now. Does that sound good?
All right, 16 years. If I'm still alive, let's do it.
I appreciate it, sir. All right, thank you again for taking the time to do this with me, and I'll let you get on with your day. Sorry I went just a little bit long on you.
No worries, man. It's always cool chatting, and yeah, no worries. I got another one here in a couple minutes, so I do have to get going, but I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you. You take care. Thank you, and I'll let you know when I get this up. I'll shoot you an email.
Cheers, man.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, we had a lovely conversation.
First lady.
Absolutely. Oh, look at me. He's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive
Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling.
Epicenter.
Oh my God, you win! Love being interactive.
I was not shooting. Yeah. I almost missed my fan. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. I see my language. Getting over the shot. Into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's going to be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Champion. Arrogant.
Jesus makes me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional
Made
wrestling.
in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire.
We were sexy.
What a show.
The one and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer, knock down your door, and turn it on for you. Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line. Have a nice day.
It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.